Regardless of what you may think of Dana White introducing the title of interim heavyweight champion while Ngannou still holds the belt, there's no doubt that UFC 265 was a banger. And now that Ciryl Gane has defeated Derrick the Black Beast Lewis, fans and professionals alike can't seem to keep their shock to themselves. The running of UFC 265. But for those of you who haven't been paying attention to the heavyweight bouts of the UFC, allow us to fill you in before we get to the overall reaction of Sunday's fight. Hosted at the Toyota Center in Houston, Texas, UFC 265 was aimed at being one of the most memorable events in the history of the Ultimate Fighting Championship, which is surprising considering how no championship title was going to be gained from a win. What was up for grabs, however, was a new title called Interim Heavyweight Champion, which Dana White introduced in a controversial move, likening it to the unification bouts we used to see in boxing back in the day. But current heavyweight champion Francis Ngannou has a different opinion when it comes to this new title. When asked what he feels about the controversial creation of the position being likened to a unification bout, he laughed the explanation off, stating that the title was nothing to do with unification. Since it's one belt in the mix, why create a title just below what everyone else is fighting for after all? We can understand why Ngannou was so perturbed by the creation of this title. The man had to wait around 3 years before he was able to take on Stipe Miocic for title recognition, and now further recognition is being handed out just 5 months after he won the bout. It's a bit of a slap in the face, but what can you do when Dana White is the one making the decisions, right? Either way, UFC 265 was heating up with rumors floating around that Jon Jones was going to be given the opportunity to take Francis Ngannou out. Since negotiations with Jones and Ngannou fell short of what was expected though, this fight was replaced by one between the Black Beast and Ciryl Gane, with White bringing on the interim title so as not to cheapen what was going to be a title fight. Fans were excited to see what Lewis had in store for them. After being demolished by Cormier back at UFC 230, the monstrous opponent went on to secure 4 consecutive wins, knocking opponents such as Alexei Oleinik and Curtis Blades to the mat, placing himself in the position of a title winner. Ciryl Gane, on the other hand, was most certainly the underdog of the interim title fight despite him being undefeated in the heavyweight division. After making his professional debut just 3 years ago, there's no doubt that experience was on the side of the Black Beast, who also had a lot more fans than Gene could ever dream of. That being said, every underdog has his day. The prediction of UFC 265. It might surprise you to hear that although Gane was most certainly the underdog in the eyes of the public, his statistics told a different tale altogether. His last 3 fights show just how much poise and skill the man has at his disposal, knocking out Dos Santos and rising above both Rozenstruik and Volkov by unanimous decisions. According to the experts on the scene, Gane was actually considered to be a lot more rounded, technical, and athletic than Lewis, giving him a pretty great chance at winning the interim title. But since this was a heavyweight bout, the major consideration was always going to be the hitting power of the monstrous Black Beast, which is clearly what fans were leaning towards. If Lewis ended up being grappled by Gane, then he would be able to overcome the power that Lewis had at his disposal. But since the only fighter to be able to do this was the Olympic wrestler himself, Cormier, things weren't looking too great for Gane. Experts were solidly standing in Lewis's corner, stating that there was a higher likelihood that the Black Beast was going to be able to land a flush hit on Gane's chin before the athletic opponent was able to get the Beast to the ground. That being said, if Gane was going to approach the fight the same way in which he took on Rozenstruik, things could start looking up. Wouldn't you know it? But that's exactly what Bon Gaiman did. The outcome of UFC 265. When it came down to the nitty-gritty, both fighters spent the first round dancing around the octagon in an attempt to measure the other up. By the second round, the Black Beast was flat on his back, having been knocked out by a masterful leg kick and a flurry of strikes. This resulted in Gane becoming the first recipient of the interim heavyweight title. The Frenchman is now considered by many betting websites to be the favorite if ever pitted up against Francis Ngannou for the actual title fight. This title bout could, however, take a while. Remember, Ngannou didn't want to fight against Jones on Sunday because he has been enjoying his stint as UFC heavyweight champion, having just earned the title a short 5 months ago. As such, we can probably expect him to take on Gane in a couple of months' time. He hasn't been the biggest fan of the interim title either, which could cause him to take even longer to respond to the win and recognition that has been given to Gane so early on. But while he wasn't paying much attention to the fight, a number of other professionals were, taking to Twitter to express their specific thoughts on how Gane absolutely demolished the Black Beast in next to no time at all. Volkan Odemek, for example, shared a short statement reading, "Gane by masterclass," following this with the emoji of a star and the hashtag UFC 265 referral. Derek Brunson did much of the same, tweeting Ciryl Wonderman Gane, followed by a number of laughing emojis and the same hashtag showing just how surprised he was at Gane taking the win from Lewis. Francis. Vince Pichel of the United States then chipped in by putting forward the statement of "toe banged him," followed by a laughing emoji. As you can tell, the other professionals on the scene were pretty surprised by Gane's win over the Black Beast and found the knockout of Lewis to be quite hilarious considering just how arrogant the fighter had been in the lead up to the bout. Another professional fighter that was very impressed by Gane was Kyler Phillips, who complimented him by referring to the way that he moved across the octagon. "Crazy to see how a heavyweight that switches stances like a welterweight," said Phillips, referring to just how quick Gane is on his feet. He wasn't the only one. Professional fighter Kenny Florian also got his 2 cents in by sharing the following detailed explanation on Twitter. "He doesn't possess the power of Ngannou, but there's just not many heavyweights in the world that are as light, fluid on their feet, and as quick as Gane. Lewis is powerful though, but Gane is seeing him sit down and load up. Can't hit what you can't reach." This seemed to be the overall response to what Gane had put out on Sunday. Described as the most technical heavyweight fighter in the world by fellow martial artist Kyle Nelson, Gane is considered by many to be the new man to beat on the circuit. While many have been concentrating on just how quick his footwork and evasive technique are, these aren't the only things that he was commended for. Other fighters also pointed out to just how ripped Lewis's opponent was, showing that he had clearly been training like a beast in an attempt to take down an actual beast that day. In the words of Amanda "Bobby" Brundage, "Back of Gane's neck looking like a package of hot dog buns." The man has made a name for himself as one of the greatest heavyweight contenders in recent history, which is crazy considering how he wasn't even the favorite to come up against Lewis. As such, quite a few professionals have been tagging Dana White and asking for a matchup between John Jones, Francis Ngannou, Stipe Miocic, and Ciryl Gane, showing just how far the technical god has made it since defeating Lewis in the second round. Derek Brunson even referred to the fight between Gane and Ngannou being something that can't be missed, tweeting that Francis Ngannou versus Ciryl Gane is going to be something else. "Shee, Dana, what's your Cash App? Take my money right now." But not everyone felt right calling Gane a champion just yet, considering he has only fought against 10 opponents in total now. Darren Wynn was one of the professional fighters to point this out, stating that he needed to beat a couple more dudes before he could receive the title of champion. We suppose this is why the added title of interim heavyweight champion is such a weird one to have, since this was just announced by Dana and exists alongside a true heavyweight title. People really don't know how to react to the win. There's no doubt that Gane is an incredible fighter, don't get us wrong, but we tend to agree with Wynn that he needs to defeat Ngannou before he can actually be called a champion. Since he has this interim title attached to his name, we'll probably see him taking on many more competitors in the future leading up to the Ngannou fight that is going to be the biggest contest of whatever year it takes place in. We can't wait to see what Gane does until given the opportunity to face off against Francis. What do you think of the professional reactions to the Gane win? Be sure to let us know in the comment section down below.